Hello, and welcome to Generation AI, the podcast where we demystify artificial intelligence in the world of higher education. I'm your host, Ardis Kadiu, and joined with me today is my co-host, JC Bonilla. Hey, JC.
Ardis, how are you?
Doing great. How have you been? You had another birthday this past week, and you took a couple of days to go skiing. How'd that go?
Thank you, my friend. I'm looking at the world from the 47th floor of this building of my life. It went really well. Thank you for asking. It's always nice to, do whatever process you do for birthdays with family and that. So I got to do it. And here we are. My birthday kind of got joined with my kids being in the winter break. So kind of had a mismatch of time out and full-time parenting. You also had a little bit of time off, so I see a little color in those cheeks. What's happening with all that, color, man?
It's all pink.
Huh?
Yeah, just went to the Caribbean for 2 days, had 79-degree weather, and then flew back to here and went to Boston, and then from Boston to Philly. And of course, it was snowy and cold, minus -5 or something like that.
One of the coldest days that we've experienced. It was brutal. It was brutal. So your rosy chicks didn't like got probably even rosier, but change.
That's right.
Probably a delta of 60 Fahrenheit, right?
That's right. That's right. It was it was not a fun place to be in Boston for during that time. We just came back from Philadelphia. We had our Achieving the Dream conference where we connected with a lot of community college leaders and folks, and both partners of Element and also prospects as well. We had a presentation there talking about AI with our really good friend Devin at Foresight Tech. The audience was outside the door, of course, as always, when we do this AI presentations. And I think I might have, it's the first time where I had another extra 6 slides in the presentation. And Devin did such an amazing job at telling that emotional story of AI, talking to one of their students, a older lady who she had disability and she coming back to school, and it's just the AI having that conversation at the end saying, have a blessed day, and the AI goes back and says, have a blessed day as well. And everybody in the audience goes, ah.
Wow.
So it's one of those really mic drop type of moments. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to follow. I'm done with my slides. So let's just end it right here.
That's awesome.
Which is really good.
Can I tell you a different story that I'm experiencing with AI right now? I have an aggressive AI right now. So I'm training for a marathon, or half marathon to be precise. And basically I've created, a custom prompt in a project on GPT where I'm using, OpenAI as my coach. And I'm using all these, prompts of gotta keep me on track. I know where I'm gonna fall short. So my gosh, it literally told me today, because I logged my race, right? So I ran today and I was like, this is what I did. It's like, you did great. Can you quantify from 1 to 8 to 10 how hard it was? I said a 10. I'm sorry, an 8. And he said, did you stretch at the end? I was like, no, I didn't. I didn't have time. And he literally screamed at me. So that sweet AI that you're talking about now is a different story. It's like, JC, you're 47 and this is how injuries take place. If you don't take care of yourself, I'm not going to do it for you. It's like, wow. And then he says, are you going to stretch tonight? 10 minutes. And then I just joined, by the way, and I'm doing something with you, and then reminding me that I have to do a 10-minute stretch. Not pretty, not tough love. I'm getting tough love from my OpenAI today.
Hey, it's just adaptive. It's just adapting to what you need, right? I mean, that's the best thing.
To be honest, we're joking around it, but it's exactly that, right? I wanted the accountability of staying on track, but the conversational aspect and the coaching has been very interesting. So yeah, I'm seeing a different side of that.
Well, speaking of AI that is
aggressive,
that has those aggressive.
Is Hector? Oh my gosh! I mean, how many updates? It's been a week, and we have I don't know. We could talk about 7 different things.
Yeah, exactly. So today we're actually going to focus very specifically on Grok-3. And Grok-3, if you haven't kept up or looked at the internet, it's kind of breaking the internet a little bit. Well, Grok is the chatbot and model from XAI, and XAI is the one of the newest AI labs, a company that is owned by Elon Musk, and it's a competitor to OpenAI, it's a competitor to Anthropic, and of course to Google as well and Gemini. So Grok 3 dropped this past week, and have you had a chance to play around with it, JC?
Grok, look, the answer is no. In this episode, you're gonna bring me up to speed because as a progressive human, I've been kind of ignoring that side of awesome technology. And when you told me we're gonna do an episode on Grok, I'm like, really? And then as I caught up for this, literally blown away. And I'm glad you're bringing it up because the speed in which this is happening, it's just basically monumental, right? And no pun intended. It's colossal, right? And one of the things we're going to talk about is the colossal supercomputer, right? But it's really, really impressive what they've achieved in the timeline. So yeah, excited to be digging with you, right?
Yeah, one of the earlier episodes we did a kind of a specific episode on the colossal supercomputer that was built in just 21 days, and now we're seeing the results of that. So in just over a year, XAI went from a startup with no major products to launching Grok 3, which is really a frontier model that's now competing with OpenAI GPT-4 and O1 models, and of course Google's Gemini 2 as well. But it's much bigger than just another chatbot, right? And really, this is a sign of AI advancements is accelerating really, really fast, and it's faster than ever. And this reasoning-based AI is kind of the key that we've been talking about over the past, few episodes around getting true agentic AI. So this reasoning component and this reasoning models are really driving that agentic AI agenda. So AI doesn't just really respond, but really thinks, plans, and acts, right? If you remember, that was one of the big things. So in this episode, we're going to try to focus a little bit on really like why is the Grok 3 different from the other AI models? Like why this reasoning-based AI is really kind of this step forward in the agentic autonomous AI agents and how we're thinking about that. And then how does this affect, obviously, day-to-day consumers or businesses or even less adoption of AI. And then we'll try to think about it through the lens of kind of this what does it mean for the competitive landscape a little bit, right, in the future. So I'm going to go through just a couple of points in here, and we're going to talk about first that speed and that AI acceleration or the progress in this acceleration. So if you remember, just 15 months ago, XAI, like they had no chatbot whatsoever.
There was no company XAI either, right? It's like 15, 18 months ago, right?
Exactly. So when you look at a chart that I posted in here, you look at XAI. XAI started Q2 of 24, dropped Grok 1. So that's when Grok 1 dropped. And in Q4 of 24, so this was last year, like December area, they dropped Grok 2. So December Grok 2 of 2024, Grok 2 dropped. And it hasn't even been 60 days since that time. And now we have Grok 3 available to us. So the speed at which these guys are producing these models is outstanding, right? And Grok 3 outperforms, like we talked, GPT-4 in a lot of the tests. And it's really challenging Gemini 2 as well. But XAI trained Grok 3 on 100,000 plus NVIDIA H100 GPUs. And if you remember that the estimation there is that it's about 200 million GPU hours or 10 times more compute than Grok 2,
Yeah.
which is crazy, right? Like that's the whole idea here. You build this massive data centers and this massive GPU clusters, and now you can train this smarter and smarter AIs in there.
Yeah. I mean, and to give another version of this scale, right? In your chart, which in which we see these step functions, right, of how the XAI and Grok drops start basically way lower than its counterparts, and they kind of catch up towards the end. What we don't see in this chart is the leg of about 8 years of OpenAI doing what they're doing to basically have their first drop, right? And that's really interesting. That OpenAI has been around for about 8 years, whereas this company XAI with their Grok drops, we're talking
15
about
months, yeah.
15 to
Yeah.
18 months. It's incredible. DeepSeek, right, which is basically the foundational work that we see on Google and things of that sort. It's been around for 18 years, or 15 years, right? So it's since the movie. My gosh, when was it that I saw it?
DeepSeek?
DeepMind. I'm sorry, DeepMind.
DeepMind,
DeepMind,
yes.
yeah. Deep. I'm getting my names now messed up as usual. That usually is on minute 42. I just happen to be in minute 12. Anyway,
That's all right.
so it's really interesting how the legacy of these organizations, whether they started as a research lab or not, give them a leg up. But these deployments are really, 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 really fast. And to top it all off, right, we're used to this idea of it doesn't matter how much fuel you got, in this case, transistors or training or supercomputer, you cannot just basically outperform a norm of, let's say, Moore's law or whatnot. But what is happening with this version of AI is that when the technology advancement surpasses the status quo, in this case, for supercomputing or I don't know, training data, it really gives you the payoff and goes back to what we were discussing before with Sam Almond, right? The log scale, right, of advancement is really there. So it's fascinating, and I think Grok captures that in my head the best, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's really interesting is that, so the way you evaluate these models, it's not just the idea of, hey, there's going to be a lot of kind of benchmarks and things like that, and everybody can kind of fudge those benchmarks. But one of the really, really cool and interesting benchmarks out there is actually called a place, Chatbot Arena. So if you're not familiar with Chatbot Arena, it's an interface, and then people can ask questions or they provide prompts, and then you have side-by-side comparison of one bot or another. And this is happening dynamically, meaning so people are testing these and people are evaluating them. So these are humans who are evaluating these outcomes or these outputs. And when you see that, it's actually, you get the vibe of this, like you talk about vibe of these AI bots. Some models are really, really good for writing. So remember Gemini, and that's why we've been using Claude. Some of them are really good for coding, and some of them are good with really hard prompts, and some of them are really good with with math and multi-turn or longer queries. What's ended up happening here is that Grok is the first model ever to get the highest score in Chatbot Arena, to go above a 1400, I believe it was.
1403. They have 1403.
1403, yeah. And when you look at it, it's number one overall style control. So these are kind of the categories in there. It's number one in hard prompts, number one in hard prompts with style control, number one in coding, number one in math, number one in creative writing, number one in following, instruction following, number one in longer query, and number one in multi-turn. So multi-turn is back and forth. And I mean, I have been playing with it for the past 4 days since Friday, since Thursday. And to be honest, I find it really, really, really good. And I've been using it more and more. So there's a lot of really interesting things that you can see that Grok does from a technical perspective, but from a vibe or from an end user perspective, I find it really good, JC. And the idea of having a model that is a reasoner and being really, really good at the creative writing as well and the other components, I find it that everything is converging now, right? So this is one of the first times that I'm seeing a reasoning model. I used to use O1 a lot with OpenAI, but it was terrible at writing. Like, it couldn't write. It would give you really good reasoning, but the writing part wasn't very good. So I had to switch back to GPT-4. But now with with Grok-3,
You get the
I can
both.
ask it deep questions. It can do both, and it can reason, and it can write really, really well.
Artist, let me say something about this type of popularity votes and popularity contests. And it reminds me of a conversation that I had last week when I'm giving a session on AI to one of our community colleges and partners. And the question from the audience is, how do you know that it's good, right? And then the question really came from the perspective of machine learning and training. So how do you know that the model is good? And one of the things that people need to understand is that these models that we're in today, they're not the deterministic models that we used to, 10 years ago, that if you predict blue and it is blue, so you said, it's good, right? If it's blue and it predicts yellow, then it's bad. What this really looks like is, think about predicting that this podcast, it's good, that you and I have good flow, that you and I have a good conversation with, our followers, and we prepare well, that we work well together. Think about how you make predictions like that. Think about how a campaign, it's good that you can come and say, actually, I swayed people, right? Of course, you can have metrics and whatnot, but at the end of the day, humans, we come and pass an assessment that this is good, this feels right, and in a way, this type of arenas and this type of competitive environments kind of give you that feeling that we humans converge, to use your word, that this feels right. And then people selecting the output from different places, or not saying, I don't like the output from ChatGPT of '01, right? I'm going to go into this one. That's literally what is happening here. And this is, again, a lot of the validation that we need in these models to come and say, give me more of that. Because at the end of the day, they use reinforced learning. And this reinforced learning is what is going to say they like that. So it's going to give me more instances like that, like that, like that. So it's really, really exciting. And I'm glad that Chatbot Arena, it's doing this popularity contest, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, it's really exciting. And when we talk about kind of evaluating this generative models, the way you evaluate them is the way you evaluate them, you create what they're called evals. And we talked a little bit about this before. Essentially, like you see the output and then you're saying, okay, this is good, this is not good, this is good. And then you have AI evaluate outputs in the future as well, right? So it's like you're essentially picking really good ones that you want. So you're absolutely right. There is no, you got to keep an eye on it. It's like we talked about this in terms of our AI employees, like you gotta make sure that the employees are always aligned and everybody's always aligned as a member of their organization. So you do training, you do evaluations, you do training, you do evaluations. So in order to keep them aligned and going forward, the same thing with these models here. So what makes this really different, JC? There's like three innovations in here, three key things that are interesting. And one of them is kind of this big brain mode, which essentially
But it's reasoning, no?
it's kind of this. It's the advanced reasoning.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So it's similar to the O1 models, but in this case, it's baked in and it kind of works very, very hard, and it slows down and reasons through complex problems before answering that. So yes, some of the other models do that. It's just a little bit different with Grok because of the surface area. I think it's about 2 trillion parameters or something along those lines that get activated and start thinking through this. It's just the massive amount of training and parameters that he has. So similar to OpenAI's model, which also prioritizes multi-state problem solving. Like we said, it's in Grok, it's much better. And then it kind of enables this self-correction, right? So it reduces hallucinations and improves accuracy on coding and math problems when you have this reasoning that goes through and evaluates itself. So when it gives you an answer, it starts thinking more and more and takes a lot of branches simultaneously and kind of comes back and says, oh, okay, now I'm going to give you an output that makes a lot more sense because I went back and evaluated myself. The other interesting part here is this is has a real-time knowledge and Twitter X integration. So Google with Gemini also has something very similar with their search knowledge graph, but In this case, I saw it as I was using it. I didn't have to hit the search button, or I didn't have to do any of that. It actually went out automatically as he was thinking. It was actually pulling in information directly on sources and tweets and things like that. So it was showing that automatically, which is pretty cool. It did the switching of using that knowledge and grounding automatically for.
That's smart, right? Because as we know, right, X, Twitter, around the ecosystem of news, topics. By the way, note to self: I need to jump back into X. I stopped using it long ago, and it's still a great place to keep updated, right? And I don't know if we're gonna touch on this, but when you look at the body of knowledge for training of a website versus a tweet or an, by the way, is it an X or a tweet? A tweet, right? That it's short in form. How should I start thinking, or how should followers think about, I'm being exposed to all these tweets and they're short, and is this good or bad for training at scale, or is it relevant, Artists? What can we say about this?
Yeah, so the tweets are real-time information. So it's not, the models are not using the tweets to train. They're essentially.
Oh, in the context window, I see.
Exactly. So they're bringing as part of the context, but they're bringing it in at the time where they're thinking through the problem and the question that you're asking it. So it's not just searching and then inserting in the context. Is actually saying, oh, think about it like very similar to the deep research AI agent but in this case, it's a little bit more baked in as part of that component.
So in other words, you can come and say, kind of give me a project about what's happening right now in, I don't know, a tsunami in Japan. And because those feeds are showing up first in X than news media outlets, you're able to actually get that context in your search. That's very interesting. It could be very relevant. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I found it very interesting and very useful when you're thinking about that. So again, there's other capabilities in there. It's multimodal. The model is multimodal. Just like we know, obviously GPT-4o is multimodal, but what we've done, and Gemini is actually quite a bit ahead of this, Gemini 2, in terms of reasoning. So we haven't gone to a point where we have a reasoning model and a multimodal model, so everything all together. So Grok-3 is the first one that we're seeing where the reasoning is really good and the multimodal components are really good. Actually, just today, they released as part of the app, they released the voice mode. It's unfiltered, man. It's really unfiltered. And the voice, it's, how the OpenAI assistant tries to be polite and has all the guardrails. This one has no guardrails. It's just, or like,
very Musk, I guess, in a design principle. Artists, how ridiculous it is that, I mean, when you say multi-models, like, yeah, of course, that in 2025, what is this, second month, right? When we speak about multilingual, the fact that you can just, take a snapshot of a whatever, and then you say, if you include that in your context window for analysis, that we just take for granted. And then it's just, I mean,
it's incredible.
It's incredible that we're here, Artists. We were not here a year ago. It was just text. And today it's just basically how you start the day. It's incredible. All right, multi-model. So basically, this is an all you can eat of all the versions of awesome AI, right? Multi-model's got the real time and of course advanced reasoning.
Yeah, one thing that makes this interesting for folks who are in the ecosystem, it's because these models are about adoption as well. So ChatGPT right now is probably the number one king of the AI chatbots and the generic tool. So it's a product because they're adding agentic, other products, and that's exactly where they're making most of their money. Whereas, some of the others are benefiting from the API stuff. OpenAI is really a product company, and they're using their models to run that. So when you think about, from this side, is that unlike other models, Grok-3 is being deeply integrated into Tesla vehicles, right? So this is the one thing that they're pushing forward. So for the voice-based AI assistants in Tesla as well. And Grok is also positioned as the built-in AI assistant for X. So it really creates a direct user funnel. So it's already there, right? You don't have to go in and kind of sign up for Grok.com. You have it already in X. If you're a user of X, Grok is already baked in into the platform, which is really, really interesting. And in terms of user adoption, can go up there very, very quickly.
Think about how Apple dominated a lot of our car experience with the CarPlay, right? And they're not even
Yeah.
known for driving cars. So the fact that they are connecting within their product categories across automotive, consumer, news, and of course frontier models, it says a lot. And no other company, I mean, Meta has a little bit of that, right? But it's just the domain is too small. Obviously, Google has. Actually, that's not true. I was just gonna go and say like no other company has that. They all have it. It's just that this is unique because it allows you to do their automotive category differently, right?
Yeah, exactly. And of course, having that end-to-end integration there is super important because you can now start thinking about how do you combine this multimodality, right? You combine robotics. It's not just the Tesla vehicles, it's going to be Tesla robots as well that are going to be around. So now you have all of these different components and you have all these different real world models so you can see how Grok can become a real world model with all of the inputs that are coming both from cars, from robotics, from Optimus, right? So all of these kind of come together.
To do something more speculatively, right? X is trying to launch payments, as far as I understand. So it'll be very interesting if this whole ecosystem or philosophy of trying to connect it brings payments. Will this be the first LLM that gets the opportunity to do payments, right? No one has connected that, correct?
Yeah, not yet, because remember it's non-deterministic, right? So that idea. So yes, the answer is could it do that? Probably, I think. But right now, I feel like the benefit is the ability for this model to bring all of those pieces together, the reasoners, and then you're going to build agents on top of those reasoners more and more.
And again, Ardis, in 15 months, god damn it, in 15 months, how did they do that?
Can you imagine that? It's crazy, right? Well, 15 months from like having zero, no training, no, and then they
That's
went.
the point.
Grok 1 dropped last summer, right? Grok 2 dropped in December, and then Grok 3 less than 60 days after that. So I want to, obviously we can compare this to, again, like GPT-4 or o1 or like how they're competing head to head with those models. But where this becomes really interesting is the road to this autonomous AI agents, right? We talked about this before, and this becomes really interesting. And the reason why we wanted to describe and talk about Grok is it has a very consumer facing view, both with X, both with Tesla, also on its own as Grok.com. It's one of the only models that is not heavily, guardrailed or has all of the restrictions that some of the other models have, and also chatbot arena being very, very smart. So that's the reason why we wanted to cover this. It's because it's actually in our tools today. And what it enables, the bigger picture is that the AI chatbot words are really stepping stone to the real evolution of AI, which we're talking about these AI agents, and chatbots are 2024. Like that's the world that chatbots are left. So just the conversational component anymore doesn't cut it, right? Of course, they're going to get better and better, but they're just a stepping stone to autonomous AI agents. And really, of course, the traditional AI can predict the next word in sentences, but the reasoning models can actually break down problems into sub-steps, analyze them, and then check their own work, right? Remember, we had that loop, like reason, adopt, and
Action.
right? That's right. So the models are getting closer to human-like thinking, and not just chatbots, but actual AI assistants, and that's the world that we're talking about in 2025 is that it really thinks like a human, right? It checks its work, it goes over its work, it breaks down things, and then it thinks like a human, and then it comes back with answers or uses tools or whatever. So why does this really matter?
Oh my gosh, why not? I mean, I have, uh, I, I mean, I can tell you, just love to hear what you're thinking about and what you're gonna explain that. But just from the technology here works, right, and the fact that we can turn out something like this in this speed, that just matters to me, right? Because that's just basically, let's put it this way, they caught up. So I cannot wait what's gonna happen with the next 15 months, right? So this is just basically, let's go back to my race vibe. All of a sudden I'm training and there's going to be, this race is going to become very, very, very fun, very, very fast, and it's going to be super competitive, right? It just got so much interesting for us consumers. That's my take.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, if you were to like think about real world applications in Grok-3 today, if you think about in education, right, it can assist with complex problem solving. It can offer like step-by-step explanations in math and science. Obviously, GPT-4 did some of that, but this it can focus on bigger and bigger problems or PhD type problems. So it's a really ideal for this personalized learning approach that we're talking about, right? So this agentic kind of step by step. Here is how you do it. So for example, it's just again, it can kind of work through that thinking mode. In terms of research, right? Like the deep search agents that are in there, it really reasons through and it pulls information out. It does literature review, it does data analysis, hypothesis generation, and then potentially saving like literally hundreds and hundreds of hours. So it's really important around
But
that.
we can say that those smarts were already with us, right? So you had versions from Gemini or OpenAI doing it, right? So from that point of view, they're doing.
No. I'm talking about general, like why this reasoner models matter right now. Yeah, I'm not talking about just Grok 3 specifically.
Well, but here's a Grok 3 component, right? If there's a catastrophe, like if there is a terrorism attack today, and people want to know what's happening, you go into X, Twitter, right? This is how literally real-time deployment information comes in, because it takes the lag between event to it hits the New York Times for maybe an OpenAI place to pick it up. It takes time. So this is actually why it doesn't matter, because now we can do all those things, but the feed of real-time events when it matters, right? It's there. So now you end up doing things that could be super, super, super interesting, right? So as we speak, my wife is with a kid, with one of our kids in birthday thing in one of these like indoor play parks. I'm pretty sure there's at least 50 parents right now tweeting, because it's like 200 people there, right? So that is available for grabs, and that is different in my opinion.
That's right. That's right. Have you used Grok? So what I use it sometimes is I see a tweet and there is like somebody's making a comment or whatever, and I don't know what the hell they mean. So instead of me going through the whole thread or looking at references, I hit the Grok and it explains what that thing means. It gives me the context and it gives me the explanation of what that means. So that's within itself, I found that to be very useful. But that was before Grok 3. We're not talking, but just having it embedded in your information feed, it's super important, right? That's what we're talking about here.
One of the things I'm taking from this conversation today is that I must go back into this whole, XAI portfolio of products and X, because it's interesting, and definitely it's a perspective of the world that I care about. So yeah, no, I haven't done much with any Groks nor the X product family.
Well, so if you want, like, if you think about it, if you were thinking about buying ChatGPT Pro for $200, you can actually go get Grok for I don't know how much a month it is, like $20 or maybe less than that, and it's much cheaper. It does exactly the same work, the deep search, the deep reasoning. So you don't need access to that all-one Pro model anymore. So you can save $180.
Ardis, did you see, totally throwing away your script, my friend, but did you see that Perplexity now has the free deep search? You get like 5 projects for free.
I love Perplexity. It's one of my favorite like product companies right now, and these guys are just incredible.
This is so exciting, right? So I'm sorry, Sam Altman, your $200 a month just got kind of diluted, so you better step it up, my friend, if you still want those $200 a month.
But if you think about it, it is crazy that we look at it that way because $20 a month or $30 a month, it's actually just three coffees or four coffees or something along those lines, right? And now you're running, you're running your whole knowledge work and like you're doing these incredible things that they would have taken you a lot longer. $200 a month is still not a lot for unlimited of this.
But remember, as per Claude's data, right, only 4% of us have the deep utilization of kind of generative
You're
AI.
absolutely right.
So what you're talking about is there's like 90% of people drinking coffee, but only 4% of us know how to make connection of coffee to LLMs.
Yeah, I mean, so again, look, this is good, right? So more competition, better AI experiences for us. AI assistants will move beyond kind of chat and task execution, it will be planning, automation. So if you have AI that thinks before responding, it will reduce misinformation and improve accuracy. So hallucinations kind of tend to go away. And because you have some of the grounding in there, these become more and more accurate. So the hallucinations kind of with these reasoning models go tremendously down. And that's a really big important. Obviously, more choices beyond OpenAI. Companies like they open up their API and they're having their API. So now we get access to these, and then there's this huge amount of wave of AI products that will need this reasoning models. And an element we're working on that. We've been talking about our autonomous AI, proactive agents, assistants, and so on and so forth that we're building, we're bringing to market. As the models and the engines get better and cheaper, that benefits everybody. So now we can bring those together faster and faster. And to be honest, I mean, for GPT-5, Grok-4, and Gemini, the timeline is accelerating. So Grok-3 just proves that this AI timeline is really accelerating. So if you think about GPT-5, Grok-4, and Gemini 3, I think they're going to be here a lot faster than we expected. So before the half of the year, before June, I would say, or July, we were probably going to have, I mean, what do you think?
Well, there were comments that people were asking Sam Altman, can you drop 5 to take some of the cloud that Grok-3 is getting, right? So this is, I mean, in terms of the competitive wars, right, and in competitive advantage, this is where he's at, right? That if I am Sam Altman right now, it's like I need to bring 5 pronto because my market share is moving. Look at what has happened right now with my head, right? It's like, God damn it, I need to go and try these things that Ardis is talking about, right? So market share, it's one of the proxies in commercialization. It gets intense that you want to grab. So yeah, it's going to get faster, and it's all important.
Yeah, and look, like the chatbot wars, they were just the beginning, right? So we're kind of beyond those now. Like we're not looking at the chatbot wars anymore. I think this real competition in the reasoning AI, it's kind of where things are at because it's the foundation of this agentic AI that we're entering in and we're seeing today. So it's really exciting. It feels like we're back in last year or maybe a year and a half ago when we were talking about GPT-4 and kind of Claude and so on and so forth, and who was better at those models. And then we moved away, and everybody's like, well, everything is good. Just use one of them. And now we're coming back to these reasoner models because they're the foundation for some of the work that we're going to be able to do with agents and make them even better and more autonomous, which is really, really exciting for us. So what does that mean for higher ed? What does that mean for consumers? It just means that you're going to get better products and you're going to get, so much intelligence in these products that they're going to compete or they're going to be able to replace the workflows that humans are doing today. And they're going to be really, really, really good at that. And look out for those products and look out for kind of some of those vertical specific, workflows. Of course, we're building a lot of them at Element here, so take a look at some of the work that we're doing. And by the way, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, the February 25th, do not forget to sign up for our AI Engage Summit, which JC and I will have a keynote all about agentic AI and kind of what that means. And there's 4 hours worth of content on Tuesday the 25th and 4 hours worth of content on Wednesday the 26th, starting from 12 p.m. Eastern all the way to 4 p.m. Eastern here. So 4 hours worth of content. So try to register. It's free. Just go to element451.com and go to the events page in there, and you can register for Engage. JC, any other last thing to wrap this up?
If you are me and you're listening, you have already your portfolio of all things AI and you default to that. So think about you go into your favorite Chinese restaurant and you always get, chicken and broccoli, right? And you stay on your lane. Sometimes things like this come and they break the perspective, or they make a hold into like, maybe I should consider something else. So artists, I live walking with, my gosh, I'm in need to start basically trying these out. These other wonderful things that are coming. And this is basically the vibe that we're in. A vibe of once you think you have it and you have it trained and it works for you, the competitor does something that is so crazy, so good, that makes you want to drop XYZ and then go into something else. So I guess my head is, if there's AI consumer loyalty, I think that's not the word for 2025, probably 2026, because it's about keeping up with the Jonases and all these different organizations. And it's really, really, really exciting. So,
all right. Well, leave us a comment wherever you listen to this podcast. Rate us. Like, we would love to hear your feedback, and we'd love to hear and understand what you guys want to know more about. And until next time. Generation AI is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you're going to like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing weekly, and we've got a wide range of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed leaders and professionals like you find their next big idea. They feature a selection of the industry's best as your hosts, like Jamie Hunt, Seth Odell, Jenny Lee Fowler, Brian Gross, and many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform that's helping institutions all over the country create meaningful, personalized, and engaging connections with their prospects and students. Learn more at element451.com.